General Cthar stepped off his ship, the sleek, dark vessel casting a shadow across the bustling space station. This was the heart of interstellar diplomacy, where treaties were forged and territories claimed, far from the front lines. But today, Cthar was not here to discuss another routine conquest. He was here with a warning, one that weighed heavily on him. Inside the Grand Council chamber, rows of high-ranking officials from various alien species watched Cthar expectantly. He was well-respected, known for his unbroken string of victories in the Thor Empire's name. But as he surveyed the chamber, he knew that his reputation might not be enough to sway them. Members of the Galactic Council, Cthar began, his deep, gravelly voice filling the hall. I come not to boast of our triumphs, but to offer a warning about a species unlike any we've encountered. A species from a world known as Earth. Murmurs rippled through the council, some intrigued, others dismissive. One official scoffed, muttering about the weakness of newly discovered species. Cthar held his gaze steady, ignoring the dissent. Earth is classified as a death world, he continued, letting the words sink in. A planet teeming with hostile conditions, with lethal predators, extreme weather, and diseases that can decimate entire populations. It is a world that actively tries to kill those who live upon it. He paused, watching the council members' expressions shift from skepticism to curiosity. Only a species of unmatched resilience could thrive in such a place. And that species is humanity. Humans are not like the others we've conquered. They are adaptable, tenacious, and capable of surviving conditions that would kill even our most seasoned soldiers. To drive his point home, Cthar activated a projection of Earth, displaying images of hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, and vast, deadly oceans. This, he said, gesturing to the imagery, is the world they call home. A planet that tests them at every turn. Humans have not only survived, they have thrived. They are engineered by their very nature to endure, to overcome. A few council members looked uneasy, glancing at one another as the magnitude of Cthar's words began to settle in. Still, there were doubters. A counselor with brightly scaled skin raised a clawed hand, his voice laced with skepticism. We have conquered countless planets, civilizations far more advanced than these humans. What makes them any different? Cthar's eyes narrowed, his voice turning colder. They are not simply another species to be subjugated. Humans possess an inherent will to survive that transcends physical strength. They adapt, learn, and innovate with unmatched speed. Give them time, and they can weaponize even the most innocuous technology. He shared accounts of human adaptability, telling of their methods for harnessing fire and lightning, of constructing shelters to withstand the elements, and of their vast, resourceful strategies for survival. Their bodies are frail compared to ours, yes, but it is their minds and determination that make them formidable. Humans do not submit easily. They fight no matter the odds. Their history is one of endless wars, conflicts they survived not because they were the strongest, but because they were relentless. The council chamber fell silent, a sense of discomfort beginning to settle among the officials. Yet some still clung to their dismissive attitudes. And yet, another counselor sneered, they have no great fleets, no weapons capable of penetrating our defenses. They are isolated, primitive. Cthar let out a long breath, suppressing his frustration. That is precisely why you must not underestimate them. Humans are used to fighting forces far stronger than themselves. They will find ways to adapt, to resist. If provoked, they will not fight by our rules. They will strike from the shadows, use their terrain to their advantage, turn everything they know into a weapon. We would be fools to initiate conflict without understanding the consequences. Another image flickered to life on the screen, a depiction of a human city, vibrant and alive despite the chaos of Earth's environment. Look at what they've built in spite of everything stacked against them. They are a young species by galactic standards, yes, but their progress has been exponential. Give them time, and they will close the gap between us. Push them too far, and we may unleash a force that even the Thor Empire cannot control. There was a murmur of laughter from a few council members, an almost mocking disbelief. A counselor from a species known for its size and brute strength leaned forward, sneering. Are we to believe that these small, fragile creatures pose a threat to the might of the Galactic Empire? They have no claws, no natural armor. They are weak. Kthar's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. Underestimating them because of their appearance would be a grave mistake. They do not need claws or armor because they wield weapons with precision and creativity. Their tactics are unconventional, their resolve unbreakable. They are a predator that does not look like one until it is too late. Despite his impassioned warning, skepticism lingered in the air. Kthar knew he had planted a seed of doubt, yet he could sense the Council's reluctance to believe him. They had spent centuries as the galaxy's ruling power, and the idea of a potential threat from such a seemingly inconsequential species clashed with their arrogance. One final time, he addressed them, his voice low, but filled with conviction. Mark my words, a war with humanity would be unlike any conflict we have known. If we provoke them, they will not only defend their world, they will fight to their last breath. And when a DEATHWORLDER fights, they do not simply seek victory. They seek survival at any cost. The council chamber was silent, each member lost in thought, weighing Kthar's words. He had delivered his warning. Whether they would heed it was out of his control. General Kthar took a deep breath, recalling a skirmish on a remote, hostile world. His audience listened with curiosity as he recounted the encounter, a simple exploratory mission, intended to survey and secure the planet for resources. His soldiers had arrived confident, well-armed, and certain of their strength. Yet, within hours, the situation had turned dire. The first sign had been subtle, a change in the atmosphere, a peculiar silence, and then, in an instant, chaos. Kthar described how his troops moved through the dense jungle, unaware that humans had already tracked their movements and begun setting traps. Humans lacked advanced weaponry compared to the Thor forces, but they compensated with environmental mastery. The humans were elusive, shadows among the foliage, striking without warning and vanishing just as swiftly. His soldiers were elite, trained to handle threats with overwhelming force, yet they had been bewildered by the humans' tactics. He painted a picture of the humans' ingenuity, their use of the terrain as both weapon and shield. They had taken rocks, branches, even local flora, and fashioned them into improvised weapons that slowed, distracted, and even wounded his troops. Despite their limited resources, the humans had transformed the jungle into a labyrinth of ambushes and traps, forcing Kthar's soldiers to tread carefully, slowing their advance. The humans had turned every step into a risk, exploiting the environment with a precision that his soldiers could not match. But it wasn't just tactics that had surprised him. Kthar recalled a human soldier who had been captured briefly by his forces. The soldier, wounded and exhausted, had still found a way to resist. Even under severe interrogation, the human refused to break, enduring pain that would have left most beings compliant or defeated. Instead, the human's resolve had only hardened. When an opportunity presented itself, the soldier had escaped, using nothing but his bare hands and the limited materials he had managed to scavenge from the interrogation chamber. By the time Kthar's forces caught up, the human had vanished back into the wilderness, leaving behind only a trail of blood and a profound sense of unease. The council members listened, some of them visibly unsettled. But Kthar wasn't finished. He shared stories he had gathered from other commanders and intelligence officers, tales that spoke to humanity's adaptability in the face of the unknown. He recounted a scenario where humans, stranded on an uncharted planet with limited supplies, had managed not only to survive but to thrive, crafting weapons from scavenged metal and engineering basic shelter against deadly weather patterns. With nothing but scrap and survival instincts, they had defied the planet's hostile conditions. Then, Kthar introduced a report on human technologies, seemingly crude but undeniably effective. He spoke of adaptive suits that allowed them to endure extreme temperatures, small but powerful energy devices they could assemble from scavenged parts, and medical techniques that enabled them to withstand injuries that would incapacitate most species. Humans had an uncanny ability to make something out of nothing. In their hands, a pile of metal could become a defensive fortification, a barren land could be farmed, and a hazardous environment could become a stronghold. The stories painted a picture of humanity as a species that thrived where others would fall. They were not limited by their technology. Rather, they enhanced it, bending it to their needs and reshaping it as they saw fit. No other species had managed such versatility with so few resources. In every tale, humans displayed a combination of stubborn endurance and relentless ingenuity that defied standard tactical logic. Kthar's own soldiers had spoken of them with a mixture of awe and apprehension, haunted by memories of battles where humans had fought on despite injuries that should have left them incapacitated. One council member shifted uncomfortably, the tales clearly affecting him, but he attempted to brush it off, calling these encounters isolated cases. Kthar's gaze hardened. He spoke with intensity, emphasizing that these were not exceptions but the rule. Humans, he argued, didn't know how to give up. In every encounter, they displayed an unbreakable will to survive, as if surrender was not in their nature. He recounted another instance where human soldiers, outnumbered and outgunned, had fortified their position and held off a superior force for days, using every piece of available terrain and resource. By the time reinforcements arrived, the humans had inflicted severe losses on their enemies, defying every tactical expectation. Kthar could sense the tension rising in the chamber. The council members were uncomfortable now, the bravado of their earlier dismissal replaced by a growing unease. But some clung to the belief that humans were merely skilled survivors, nothing more. They adapt, yes, one counselor conceded, but they are still vulnerable. Persistence is admirable, but it is not enough against the might of our fleets. Kthar shook his head, his voice low but resolute. Persistence is exactly what makes them dangerous. Humans do not stop. They continue to push forward, no matter how dire their situation. Every attempt to subjugate or control them would be met with relentless resistance. A conflict with them would not be a series of battles, but a sustained, grinding war that would drain our resources and morale. He looked around the chamber, meeting each council member's gaze in turn. You must understand, they fight to survive, not for conquest or glory. Their tactics are not bound by the same principles that govern our wars. They will do whatever it takes, use whatever they can, to protect themselves and those they care about. To engage with humanity would be to enter a conflict where no tactic is too desperate, no strategy too extreme. With those final words, he left them to their discomfort. The choice lay with the council now, but Kthar had made his position clear. Humanity was not an enemy to be provoked lightly. General Kthar leaned forward, his gaze steady as he addressed the council. To understand humanity's true strength, you must look beyond their physical resilience and adaptability. Their real power lies within their psychology, their collective spirit. Humans possess a survival instinct unlike any species we've encountered. It's woven into their very beings, a relentless drive that pushes them to endure, adapt, and protect their own. He paused, letting his words settle. Humans will fight for themselves, yes, but they will fight even harder for each other. In their history, during times of war and crisis, they've shown an unbreakable unity, rallying around one another to face the unthinkable. This instinct isn't just a strategy, it's a core part of who they are. And when threatened, it becomes a force of its own. Kthar went on to recount some of humanity's wartime records, drawn from Earth's own bloody history. He spoke of battles where human forces had held out against overwhelming odds, refusing to surrender even as their numbers dwindled. They endure beyond reason, beyond logic. This tenacity is rooted in a loyalty and resolve that we, in our structured empires, rarely see. They'll sacrifice their own comfort, even their lives, to protect what matters to them. And it is this resilience that makes them a truly formidable opponent. Turning to their strategies, Cthar described how humanity had developed methods of warfare that defied conventional military logic. Humans are masters of guerrilla tactics. They'll exploit any advantage, use the land and weather, set traps, and strike without warning, often when least expected. To many of us, these tactics seem dishonorable. But to humans, war is not about honor, it's about survival. They don't care how they win, only that they do. He recounted cases where humans used sabotage, infiltrating enemy ranks to dismantle forces from within. Their methods were unorthodox. They would strike critical supply lines, use psychological warfare to sow doubt, and hit morale by focusing on the psychological weaknesses of their enemies. These strategies are unsettling to many of us, Cthar admitted, because they expose weaknesses in our own methods. Humans will target the mind as much as the body. They know how to manipulate fear and uncertainty, leveraging it to their advantage. Against them, a soldier does not just face a physical threat, but a psychological one as well. The council members shifted uneasily, understanding the implications. Cthar pressed on, explaining how humans could blend seamlessly into enemy territory, adopting disguises, learning local languages, and taking on the roles of civilians or defectors. They're unpredictable, able to adjust in real time to the changing circumstances of the battlefield. Most of us are used to structured combat rules of engagement. But humans, they thrive in chaos. Their tactics defy our sense of order. They can turn every weakness, every oversight, into an opening. Cthar contrasted this flexibility with the rigid doctrines of the Galactic Empire's forces. Our soldiers are drilled in honor, loyalty, and discipline, trained to move in precise formations, to follow strict hierarchy. They have rules, expectations, boundaries. And while these make us formidable in structured battles, they are weaknesses against a species that cares nothing for formality or protocol. Humanity fights without limitation or constraint, unafraid to subvert what we hold sacred. He went on, explaining how the Empire's forces depended on chain-of-command structures that could be exploited by humans, who would strike leaders to disrupt operations. Humans have a knack for targeting points of vulnerability in ways that our forces are not prepared for. They don't just seek to destroy their opponents, they seek to dismantle their ability to fight. Their unpredictability is a weapon in itself. At this, a council member interrupted, unable to hide her concern. Are you suggesting our forces are unprepared for this chaos? Her voice wavered slightly, revealing the apprehension creeping in. Cthar met her gaze, unflinching. Yes, our forces, as disciplined and skilled as they are, have not encountered an enemy like this. We fight with valor, order, and protocol, while humans fight with ruthlessness, cunning, and resolve. Their flexibility makes them adaptable. Our rigidity makes us predictable. In a prolonged conflict, these qualities will play to their advantage. Several council members exchanged nervous glances. One attempted to rally, dismissing Cthar's concerns as exaggerated. Perhaps they are cunning, but they are still a new and relatively primitive species, he argued. Surely, with superior technology and coordination, we can subdue them. But Cthar shook his head resolute. You misunderstand. Technology will not compensate for the mindset difference. It is not a matter of power, but of perception. Humans are unburdened by the ideals we hold in combat. They will leverage every psychological weakness we have, strike where we least expect it, and adapt faster than we can anticipate. They are not bound by our expectations. The council members fell silent, the weight of his words settling over them like a dark cloud. Cthar continued, voice steady. You must look past our biases, abandon any notions of superiority. Underestimating them will cost us far more than a single battle. If we provoke them, we may face an opponent who does not simply seek victory, but who views every encounter as a fight for survival itself. That makes them relentless, and if there is one thing I know of humanity, it is that they do not surrender. Kthar looked around the chamber one last time, letting his gaze linger on each counselor. My advice is simple. Do not mistake their pragmatism for weakness, nor their flexibility for a lack of principle. They are guided by something deeper, something that even the greatest empires struggle to withstand. If you continue to treat them as lesser beings, you will learn, as I have, that this is their greatest weapon. The council chamber buzzed with whispers, the allure of new territory and potential resources too tempting to ignore. The council members discussed the expansionist possibilities, exchanging eager glances as they calculated the economic gain and political leverage that control over Earth and its surrounding systems could offer. The cost-benefit analysis, to them, was straightforward. Humanity was a younger species, and despite Kthar's warnings, the thought of valuable resources was far more persuasive than any talk of risk. General Kthar watched in silence, his jaw clenched as the council's ambitious voices grew louder, focusing on the rewards they believed would be easily within their grasp. He finally interjected, his voice calm but laced with urgency. Counselors, I urge you to consider the cost of what you're proposing. These humans are not unclaimed resources. They are prepared to defend themselves, and I believe they will retaliate in ways you cannot anticipate. A conflict with humanity will not end with a single decisive strike. It will be prolonged, brutal, and deeply costly. The council leader, a seasoned politician, dismissed his concerns with a wave. We understand, General, but these risks are manageable. We have conquered countless worlds. Why should one primitive species cause us any significant trouble? If they resist, we'll simply subdue them as we always have. Kthar fought back frustration. Humans are not passive. They have a history of independence, and unlike others, they are already aware of potential alien threats. They have been advancing rapidly, not just in technology, but in defensive strategies. We have reports that they've been developing planetary shields, subterranean bunkers, and space combat capabilities. They're actively preparing for the possibility of contact, and not with a welcoming parade. He could see some council members pause, the weight of his words stirring doubts, but one ambitious voice rose above the others. Counselor Varric, a younger, zealous official with a reputation for favoring aggressive expansion, leaned forward. General, we are not proposing open conflict. We will initiate peaceful contact, a show of diplomacy to gauge their reaction. We merely need to assess their defenses, perhaps through peaceful exchanges. This would allow us to take their measure without risking a premature confrontation. Kthar bristled. Counselor Varric, if humanity senses deception, they will view it as an act of aggression. They value honesty in matters of sovereignty. Testing their defenses under the guise of peace is an invitation for them to retaliate. If we lose their trust, any hope of diplomacy will vanish, and we will be left only with conflict. But Varric seemed undeterred. If there is cunning, as you say, General, they will see the strategic advantage of aligning with us rather than opposing us. After all, they stand to benefit from our technology and resources. They'll see sense. The frustration in Kthar's voice was now unmistakable. Counselor, I don't believe they will see sense if they feel their survival is at stake. They are, above all, a species defined by their drive to protect what is theirs. By attempting to manipulate them, you are setting the stage for a conflict that will spiral out of control. Yet the council's eagerness was not easily curbed. Another counselor added, humanity may be formidable, but our forces are more numerous, more technologically advanced. We will take precautions, of course, but the rewards justify the risks. Kthar tried a different approach, outlining intelligence reports indicating humanity's growing alliances. Humans are not isolated. They have formed alliances with other species. They share knowledge, technologies, and even defensive resources with their allies. These alliances are defensive, and while they may appear modest now, they are growing in strength and number. The more we press, the more they will solidify these alliances against us. Several council members exchanged uneasy glances. Some began to consider the possibility that a war with humans could draw in multiple factions, turning an isolated conquest into a larger, more complex conflict. But Varric remained resolute, unwilling to back down. Then we will proceed carefully. A reconnaissance mission, nothing more. No open engagement. We will gather the information we need without raising suspicion. If humans are as perceptive as you say, they may see the benefits of cooperation and align with us willingly. Kthar clenched his fists, his patience stretched thin. He could see the path this would lead to, a reconnaissance mission that could be easily misinterpreted by humanity as an act of aggression. Counselor Varric, humans do not take kindly to having their territory intruded upon. A reconnaissance mission will not be seen as neutral. If they detect our probes or ships observing them, they will interpret it as a threat. But Varric's mind was set, and Kthar realized that no amount of cautionary tales would dissuade him. The council soon reached a decision. A covert reconnaissance mission, ostensibly diplomatic, would be dispatched to Earth. Its purpose, officially, would be peaceful contact, but everyone in the room understood the true intent. They would gauge humanity's strength, assess their defenses, and, if necessary, pave the way for eventual subjugation. As the council meeting came to an end, Kthar left the chamber, his mind racing with frustration and a growing sense of dread. He had done all he could to convey the risks, but the council's hunger for expansion had blinded them. They believed that humanity was just another obstacle, another species that could be manipulated or subdued. But Kthar knew better. In the corridors outside the chamber, he paused, silently vowing to do what he could to avert the coming conflict. He was determined to find allies within the empire who shared his perspective, officials who might still be swayed by reason. But he knew his influence alone might not be enough. The reconnaissance team was dispatched, slipping through the black void toward Earth with a mandate to observe and assess without alerting the humans. But things didn't go as planned. No sooner had they approached Earth's vicinity than their presence was detected. Human forces were already waiting, intercepting the team with ruthless precision. Within moments, the Galactic Empire's ships were under fire. Every attempt to evade was met with calculated responses, each human maneuver more adept and brutal than the last. What was supposed to be a stealth mission ended in a devastating retreat, the Empire's forces sustaining heavy losses as they barely escaped. Back in the council chamber, Kthar laid out the grim report, detailing the ambush, the staggering losses, and the undeniable fact that the humans had anticipated the move. Their response was not only tactical, but brutal. They knew we were coming, and they were prepared for us. This was no coincidence. They understood our mission before we even arrived. As the council listened, unease settled over them. Kthar continued, his tone grave. But that's not all. We have intelligence indicating that humanity has formed alliances with other alien species. Some of these allies are former adversaries of ours, civilizations we subdued. Humanity has not only grown in strength and technology, but has actively built a network of alliances. They've created a coalition against us, drawing together those who suffered under our rule. They are gathering strength in ways we did not foresee. This revelation hit hard. The council members exchanged worried glances, realizing that humanity's alliances presented a far more substantial threat than anticipated. These were not isolated rebels. They were organized, unified, and strategically aligned with forces that held a deep-rooted desire for freedom from the Empire. Kthar pressed on, using this moment of vulnerability. We are facing not just humanity, but an entire coalition determined to resist our expansion. These alliances are defensive by nature, but if provoked, they will retaliate, and they will bring their full strength to bear. Our fleet are soldiers. They will be fighting on fronts we can scarcely predict. There is no victory to be had here, only endless conflict and suffering on both sides. A flicker of doubt passed through some council members. Yet others, undeterred, argued that the Empire had faced coalitions before and triumphed. They believed that Earth's allies would scatter if the Empire flexed its military might. But Cthar interrupted, his voice firm and laden with conviction. You are underestimating the one thing that sets humanity apart from every other species we have encountered. Their strength lies not just in numbers or alliances, but in their unyielding resilience and their ability to rally under pressure. If we persist, if we provoke them further, we won't see a gradual conquest. We will see an uprising, one that will engulf not just the Empire, but the galaxy itself. Cthar's final plea was impassioned, a last attempt to save them all from the looming catastrophe. I urge you, counselors, to abandon this reckless course. Humanity is not simply an adversary. They are a force, one that we cannot hope to contain through subjugation. There is still a chance to seek peace, to open diplomatic channels, to avoid a war that will reshape the Empire in ways we cannot control. But as he spoke, he could see the division within the council. Some listened, seeing the wisdom in his words, their expressions contemplative and hesitant. Yet others remained fixated on conquest, whispering among themselves, calculating potential gains, and dismissing the risks as exaggerated. With frustration welling within him, Cthar left the chamber, recognizing the limits of his influence. But as he departed, he made a quiet vow to himself. If the council would not heed his warnings, he would seek another path. He would find ways to support humanity, to ally himself with the DEATHWORLDERS he had come to respect. In them, he saw the resilience and courage that could shift the balance of power, maybe even disrupt the Empire's grip on the galaxy. Reflecting on all he had learned of humanity, Cthar felt a profound sense of awe. They were unlike any other species he had known, a people defined not by technology or conquest, but by their unbreakable spirit and the strength that arose from their very struggle to survive on a harsh world. Where others saw them as mere obstacles, he saw a potential ally who could challenge the Empire's oppressive rule. Humanity, he realized, might be the key to change that was desperately needed. As Cthar walked away, he knew that humanity's rise would not be easy, nor would it be immediate. But he was certain of one thing: the Galactic Empire was no longer in control of the galaxy's future.